use my 2 hands.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. ECC preliminary statement, October 12, 2017. This preliminary statement is based on reports that the ECC has received from 496 out of 498 rapid response observers deployed to polling places proportionally nationwide as of 5 p.m. on October 11, 2017. The ECC deployed 2,170 trained and accredited observers, including 170 mobile observers and 2,000 polling place observers deployed in all 73 districts. Of the 2,000 observers, 832 are systematically deployed as rapid response observers, 498 of which are deployed based on a proportional distribution by districts. This means that the proportion of polling stations observed by rapid response observers in each district and county closely matches the overall percentage of polling stations in each district and county. This proportional deployment enables the ECC to comment on the process nationally, drawing on data points from every district of the country. Appendix A that we provide to you will show our detailed deployment plan. On election day, the ECC released a midterm update on the setup and opening process. This statement focuses on the voting, closing, and counting processes. Figures reported reflect percentages of polling places observed and do not reflect all polling places across the country, but do provide credible and reliable data on the electoral process. The key findings. Based on reports from ECC observers deployed to polling places in all 73 districts, Liberians turned out peacefully in large number to choose their next leaders and play their part in deciding the country's future. ECC observers witnessed Liberians casting their ballots despite challenges. This includes issues with the final registration roll, the FRR, long queues, and polling places that closed at 6 p.m. with voters still waiting to vote. While technical and administrative lapses made this process more difficult for voters, Liberians demonstrated their commitment to exercising their right to vote by turning out in large numbers, enduring the long queues, and peacefully engaging in the polls. ECC observers monitored the entire election day process in their assigned polling places, starting with the setup and continuing through the counting process and the announcement of the results. They reported using the unique observation checklist and coded text messages to a central database system at the ECC National Information Center. Within their polling place, ECC observers witnessed NEC staff generally following voting procedures. In 97% of polling places observed, voters were always asked to present their voter registration card before being allowed to vote. ECC observers in 96% of polling places reported that the ballot papers were always stamped before being handed to the voters. In 99% of polling places observed, the voting screen was placed in a way that guaranteed the secrecy of the vote. ECC observers noted that the finger of every voter was inked after voting in 98% of polling places. At least 2 NEC staff in 67% of observed polling places were women. However, only 22% of observed polling places had a woman as the presiding officer. while voting process within the polling place generally ran smoothly, ECC observers reported that NEC staff experienced challenges in managing queues and directing voters to the proper polling places, particularly in areas with higher numbers of registered voters and in voting precincts located in facilities not adequate to accommodate these numbers. This resulted in long waits and frustration among voters and caused voting and counting to extend long past the official closing time. Final registration roll. In only 33% of observed polling places, all voters who presented a valid VR card found their details on the final voter registration roll. However, 48% of polling places observed by the ECC had 1 to 9 cases where a person appeared to have a valid VR card indicating that they should vote in that polling place, or whose name did not appear on the FRR. In 19% of polling places observed, 10 or more cases were reported. ECC observers noted that this caused delays, confusion, and in some cases, tensions at polling places during the voting process. ECC observers noted inconsistencies in how NEC staff addressed the issue of voters missing from the FRR. In 75% of observed polling places with missing names, these voters were permitted to vote. However, voters in 25% of these polling places were denied the ability to vote. A significant number of polling places remain open past the designated closing time of 6 p.m. ECC observers reported that 41% of observed polling places closed after 6:30 p.m., with many remaining open late in the evening to allow voters to cast their ballots. In 88% of observed polling places, there were still voters in the queue at 6 p.m. In 93% of these polling places, voters in the queue at 6 p.m. were allowed to vote. However, in 7% of these polling places, voters still in the queue were denied the right to vote. ECC observers also noted that some polling places did not have adequate lights, which caused additional delays in the counting processes and increased the potential for human error. Furthermore, ECC observers noted that a record of the count forms were not systematically posted at the ward of the polling places after the completion of the counting process. Party agents. ECC observer reported the presence of at least one party agent at 99% of observed polling places during the voting and counting processes. This contributed to a level of transparency in the process. In only 16% of observed polling places, party agents filed a complaint. This demonstrates that the party agents did not challenge the counting process in most polling places. During voter registration and the exhibition process, the ECC noted the low level of participation of political parties as party agents. The widespread presence of party agents in polling places on election day is a significant improvement in political parties' role in monitoring the process. Recommendations to the NEC. In the event of a second round election, 1. Urgently inform the public and political parties on the procedures for voters whose names are missing from the FRR. Polling staff should also receive timely, clear, and consistent instructions on these procedures. Update logistic plans to ensure a timely delivery of all election materials. Ensure voters are informed about the runoff election. Consider relocating congested polling precincts to other locations that will facilitate the free flow of voters. ensure that temporary staff receive adequate training, particularly relating to crowd control and providing assistance to voters in determining which queue they are to vote. Provide timely and up-to-date information to voters during the tally process, including providing detailed information to the public on how data entry and transmission of results at both the magistrate offices and at the tallying center, National Tallying Center. Treat all electoral disputes equally and adjudicate them in a timely and transparent manner. Publicly provide polling place level results in a machine-readable format in a timely manner as a measure of transparency. Reconsider the allocation of ballot papers per polling place to better fit the actual number of registered voters in that polling place. Accredit organizations to observe rather than individuals. This only reduces the burden on the NEC to produce accreditation badges for individual observers, but also allows observer groups to more effectively recruit and, if needed, replace observers during the election. To the political parties. Remain peaceful, abide by the laws, and refrain from announcing election results or claiming victory when the certified results are yet to be announced. If any political party or independent candidate has grievances on the electoral process and results, follow the laws and procedures as enshrined in the electoral laws and regulations. In the event of a runoff election, the ECC encourages the contesting political parties to deploy trained agents to observe the voting, closing, counting, and tallying of results, and to properly document their findings, and in no time interfere with the process. To the Supreme Court, expeditiously adjudicate all electoral-related petitions, disputes, and grievances. To the police, continue to demonstrate neutrality and professionalism in dealing with electoral-related matters. To the media, continue to demonstrate a high degree of professionalism on how it reports on the results of the elections. Remain conflict sensitive in reporting on all electoral disputes. To civil society, continue to engage citizens to remain peaceful during the announcement of results, and if there is a second round, to provide civic education to citizens to participate peacefully to ensure a smooth political transition. The work of the ECC is done in partnership with the National Democratic Institute with funding from USAID and Open Society Initiative for West Africa, OSIWA. Thank you. Disability to people with a disability was addressed in our midday election day press conference. We did say there was several polling precincts that were not easily accessible by people with disabilities.
Yes.
I am Lansana Pufana, I write for Capital Times newspaper. We have been receiving calls from Ghana, also Nigeria, claiming that the CDC is claiming victory in this election without waiting for the NEC. So how do you feel about such when they are under obligation to stick to the rules of engagement made earlier on by NEC?
There's no way that the ECC will control what is put on Facebook or what is placed on social media. But we're very much concerned that these kinds of public statements and utterances, the political party, that's what we're calling on them to refrain from announcing results, to refrain from making these kind of public statements, and allow the NEC that is legally mandated to announce election results. And if they have issues, there are legal procedures laid down in the manuals, in the regulations, in the elections law, in the Constitution. We know how these kind of claim statements can have on the peace and security of the country. And it raises expectations among your supporters. And if you don't win the first round, we don't know what the reaction will be. And that's why, as an election monitoring group, we are emphasizing on the political parties to show leadership in this very critical political transition period.
Yeah. Just, you can just stay on the queue to pose the question. Yeah.
Good morning, sir. I'm Rudolph Pocket, and I represent the New Forces newspaper. Since October 10, what have you observed to be contrary to the national best practice?
Good afternoon. My name is Joe Woolley. I write for Concord Times. I woke up this morning to hear that the Liberty Party has already filed a protest calling for NEC to cease any enhancement of itself. How does this worry you?
We'll take one more question, then we'll get a response.
E.J. Nathaniel Debo, Newton newspaper. With these challenges being raised by you, do you think the process, do you trust the process? Do you have confidence in it? Do you think it's credible?
We will speak to the polling places we observed. And I will re-emphasize, our report is based on the polling places observed as represented sample of the districts and the national polling precincts. The results are still being counted. Election does not end on the day of casting ballot. And there are many yardsticks by which we use to state categorically if elections are free, fair, credible. So we are also waiting for the big picture. But what we've seen so far, we want to congratulate all Liberians and the various stakeholders for the work done so far. And these challenges, I'm sure, did not greatly impede the process. And so we're waiting for the second segment of the voting process, which is the tallying, transmission, and credibility of the results. That will enable us as ECC to have a clearer picture on whether we can make a full determination on credibility and transparency. Second question to the Liberty Party. Every party has a constitutional right to file a complaint on electoral returns. And that's the right of the Liberty Party. If they feel aggrieved, if they feel that they have issues, and we want to say, yes, that's the right way to proceed, that the Liberty Party is saying we will file a legal petition. And that's important. The challenge is now with the Liberty Party to provide evidence and that will prove their claim. So we want to encourage them. This is what we call for all the time, the rule of law. Because this is how we build a solid democracy. Not taking the laws in your hands, but if you have issues, you follow the procedures, you file your complaints, you provide evidence, and allow due process to take its course. With respect to the third question, I'm not sure what international standard you're speaking about, because there are many different interpretations of what that is. But we think the elections here have followed, global best practices.
Yes. No, this way first.
Good morning, my name is Anthony Stevens. I work for Power TV. Yesterday, like here, Councillor Kokoyo did apologize over the irregularities. And my question is about the credibility of the elections. It's a follow-up to an earlier question asked by Table. With the apologies by the NEC, do you think that the process was credible? And also, the Liberty Party has called for the halting of the announcement of election results. Do you think that should happen definitively?
Well, I can speak for the NEC, and the chairman of the NEC did say there were challenges, and he rendered apologies. We will speak for what we see, and And I just said to you, there are many components that go into credible elections. So the voting has just, just ended. So let's give the process a time. With respect to Liberty Party's right, I don't think the Liberty Party can tell the NEC to not announce results, because NEC is constitutionally mandated to organize elections, and that means pronouncing results. The best the Liberty Party can do is to file a complaint to the NEC with this evidence.
My name is Ronnie Kamara, and I write for the Analyst newspaper. We talk about irregularities. There were reports that those irregularities led to the disenfranchisement of thousands of librarians who could not just form part of the queues as a result of some disorganization between the polling places. How do you respond to this?
In our statement, we didn't use the word irregularities. We said technical and administrative lapses. So I want to make that very clear again. We did not say irregularities. We said technical and administrative lapses. And we highlighted those who did not vote because of the lack of consistency of information to the polls worker on how to deal with those whose names were not on the voter list, although they had valid voter cards.
Yeah. Any more questions? Okay. Yes. Well, we got copies of the statement available for members of the Fulford State. You may collect a copy. I want to thank you very much for honoring our invitation to this press conference and to our partners from the international community. We want to say thank you for gracing this occasion, and please keep your ears open as the ECC will be coming up periodically with reports on our observation as the information filter into our data system. Thank you very much.